yeah, I like to say this is our first time getting together, but last week you and I got together for the very first time
Yeah, well, for the first time after a long while.
after a long
Yeah,
while. Yes.
yes. So it's good meeting you face to face, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. For those, Gordon was so nice. He brought us over to this restaurant, and we got a chance and over at a mall, a Chinese restaurant. It was just a wonderful meal, and there we got a chance to see each other in person and catch up after a long time.
Yeah, over a meal of Chinese cuisine called Teochew
Yeah,
dishes.
yeah. Now, Gordon, with all the stuff that you order, what was your favorite dish, or what did you enjoy?
Well, like you, we both enjoyed the dumplings. It's great. I think
Yeah.
it was or the nice soup and the meat was just wonderful. But I think just because of its uniqueness, I like the omelet.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, for me, another thing that I enjoyed was right at the beginning, those rice crepes with the peanut sauce. I
Yes,
thought it
it's
was
so simple
excellent.
and yet so wonderful, right?
Right? Yes, yes, yes. And weather, I was surprised. I haven't been there in Singapore for a while. I was surprised at how humid it is.
Yes, you've not been in Singapore a while, in other words.
Yeah, like today, how's the weather like today? Same as usual?
Well, it's raining outside, and so there we go. It's the usual weather, hot and humid.
Uh, uh, More so, Gordon, I was trying to figure out when is it not raining in Singapore?
Oh, yeah. Well, the days when we don't rain, it doesn't rain, but then it gets hotter even. So,
Yeah.
as a golfer, I prefer those days that don't rain than the days that rain.
Yes. Yeah. Do you still play during it when it's raining?
No, when once it's a thunderstorm, it's dangerous because lightning activity could be very dangerous for people wandering out in the open.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, today, a lot of times we're reading this don't cling to your old job after being promoted. And so, Gordon, when you thought of this, what was your first initial thought before we dive into it? What did it lead back to memories of your old job, or what were you thinking about?
Yeah, no. So I was thinking of two things. The first was triggered by the fact that, yeah, my children, who are both working, should be looking at maybe having a annual review and maybe perhaps the prospects of being promoted. And so as I thought about being promoted, I thought about myself, and there were times when I wish I was more coached or guided and know what to do when you get promoted.
Yeah, yeah. For you, a lot of times when you, even during your JP Morgan Chase days, what was it that like when you had to transition and move up to the next step? Was it hard for you to let go, or how did you have to deal with the transition?
Yeah, no, no. So I think the first feeling is of the one of excitement, one of feeling really confident, feeling really, like I can do this. And then you realize that, oh, people continue to come to you because you did well. And because you did well, you were promoted. So your kind of identity gets stuck with that last
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes you like to get stuck with that old job because you're familiar with it. You know it. You understand what the problem is. And so it allows you to go back to your old roots to really be able to figure out what's happening.
Exactly, and unfortunately, you feel very protective about your last job, and so
Mhm.
you don't want to let go. You want to be still the center of attention for what you did in the previously. Wow, there we go.
And where I do find, especially when I'm doing with multiple job, including the old job, is I'll still be focused on doing the new job and transitioning to that role. But man, I still like my hands doing the other stuff because that was my baby. I controlled every aspect of it.
Exactly, and people came to you because you were good at it.
Yeah. When the article begins, as a leader, when you get promoted, the boundaries between the good and the new and old can easily blur. You were promoted because you excelled at your previous job, and letting go of that work can feel uncomfortable, almost like giving up part of your professional identity. But true advancement requires intentionality, stepping to a new level of leadership, not doing two jobs at once. And so we're going to talk about 5 ways this article talks about ensuring you make a complete transition and empowering your team to take ownership of the work you must leave behind. First one, clarify your new scope and authority. Talk to me about that.
So this is very interesting. We move into roles, and sometimes the people who promote you don't tell you what they expect of your new role, or rather expect of you for your new role, and so you go in thinking that it's your role time two or something like that, and so you go in and you do the same thing all over again, and at the end of that 1 year in that role, your superior comes to you and says, "What are you doing? You're totally failing in your new role." And that's one of the things that I find. So I think the article suggests that we need to clarify with the superior or your supervisor what is that new role and what does the new role entail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of times, one of the things, because here's the tension I feel, the boss who had promoted you, who was in that role, in their head, they assume that this is what it needs to be in this role. You are trying to assume what that person is trying to say, but you also have your own definition. Now you have to make sure that both sides are merging together and there's a clear expectation of what it is.
Exactly. And usually, one of the big problems that you have is you respect your previous boss or the person in that role, and then you said, okay, this is what I saw the person do, and so on and so forth. But I still have this other role, and so I'm going to go in there and hedge myself, and then you do both roles. And
Yeah.
worse still, usually you get promoted out of the ranks of some peers, and so now you moved from being a peer to being
Mhm.
their supervisor. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And the three questions they recommended that you ask is, what value do you expect to bring to this new position? Okay. How do you define the outcomes for which I'm accountable? At the end of the day, what is it that you need me to produce? But here's the best one. How do you see this position as different from my predecessor? What is it that you are expecting me to do and also continue to grow that's different from what my predecessor did?
Right. I think let's deal with the first one. What's the value you expect of me? And sometimes the value proposition can be very different. Let's say you were a very good analyst and you did lots of analytical studies about some things, and then now you're promoted to lead a team, which is a completely different skill set. One,
Yeah.
you're using your brains to do it yourself. The other one, you need to work with people, and so that's a different thing altogether.
Or a lot of times it is the value was your predecessor, the person in that role, was too nice to everyone. It's become a mess. So I need you to be more of a direct leader to hold these guys accountable and change the culture that is no longer that exists there. And so we got to change that culture.
And sometimes some people like myself who are really trying to be nice guys, we think and we looked at a person previously and say, "Oh, it was very nice to his team," and you try to emulate that when actually you were asked to kind of straighten the team out. And well,
Yeah. It reminds me of one of my friends, Hall of Famer Tony Dungy, American football. And he was in charge of the Minnesota Vikings, and he went over to Tampa Bay to oversee their football team. And they said, "Okay, we need you to sit there and keep these guys accountable." And he said to the owner, he said, "Look, I'm not going to come in, rah, rah, yell at them, all of those things. But if your expectation is that I'm going to hold these guys accountable, but you got to let me do it in my own way. I'm going to sit down with them. I'm going to talk to them like men, but I'm going to raise the bar high. That's what I'm going to do." So, in some sense, you got to understand what the outcome is, but fit it according to what you do best.
and talking about outcome, I think that's very important to clarify. What is the expectation there? Because 1 year or maybe even 100 days into the job, the person who promoted you might be very disappointed that you haven't done what you thought you'd do.
Yeah. Next one, set a clear transition date. Why is that important?
um, well, this is something I think we all get trapped by, because there's no actual transition date. You get promoted, announcement goes out, and you're still doing your old job because the person hasn't the person who's succeeding you may not have moved in, or the person succeeding you may not have been well equipped to do your job, and so there's no transition date in that sense. And because there's no transition date, people who used to come to you will continue to come to you instead
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
person.
Yeah. And so in some sense, the clear transition date means that a lot of times you're no longer doing that. And so it will be messy for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. It will be messy. And they're going to try to figure out questions. Some things will not get done the way it was, but that person who replaces you has to figure it all out. You also need to really be able to get started with your new job as well, too.
Exactly. And without that new transition, the new guy doesn't know when he's supposed to assume your role, because to him, it may be a promotion too. And so there we go.
Yeah. The key phrase they wrote is clarifying boundaries politely but firmly prevents confusion and sets everyone up for success.
Yeah. And then, the other person may be wondering, okay, so when do I really get to do what you used to do?
Yeah, yeah. Third one, articulate your new leadership narrative.
This one is a bit more difficult because I guess it's my nature. And I think the narrative is one where you need to tell people around you, people who work with you, even your bosses or from other departments, that I no longer do this job, but I do a different job, and this is, by the way, my job. And having that narrative requires one to kind of have clarity of what you're letting go of and what you're going to take on.
Yeah. And I will probably say, do I see the importance of writing down your leadership there? I think it's over. I see where it is. I don't see the importance of it. I think a lot of times if you transition your role, you bring everyone together and you're able to say, "Hey, look, here are my goals. Here are the things that what my outcomes are." I think that should be your narrative. It should be part of your DNA. But I don't see a strong emphasis on it. But I think a lot of times you do need to communicate that.
All right. I suppose this article is written by a coach of sorts. And I know, being a coach myself, I always like to get my clients to have some clarity. And one of the better ways to get clarity is to really write things out, or, just have a script of sorts. But,
Yeah.
the people perhaps like you, who are great communicators, who really can think and speak at the same time, and in your mind as you speak, you actually starts to clarify. So there we go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Different
yeah,
strokes
yeah,
for
yeah.
different strokes for different folks.
I could honestly see me bringing the team together. I say, okay, look, it's going to be the same thing. I do expect you to really be able to step up to do what you need to do. My role is to make sure that here are the things that we want to accomplish in these 90 days or in the next year. I'm going to find some time to talk with you individually, but I do expect you to do your work and we won't have any problems. And we're going to call it that way.
Yes, and what you just did was something that's very clear in your mind, but not all of us are that way. So I guess
Yeah.
having the ability to write down, or being very clear about what's your next step.
Because I realized this, there are some people who do like processes. There are some people
Mhm.
who need to communicate with the process.
Yes, and there are some people who feel very uncomfortable with having to formally do it.
Yeah. What about redirect inquiries thoughtfully?
This is an interesting one. So when I read this, and I came to this paragraph or this segment, I started thinking, what did I do that when I was in my role, when I promoted? And I do recall a few occasions where I didn't really make that very a powerful statement, and as a result, the person who took over my job felt undermined, because people kept coming back to me, and
Yeah,
the person in that job just, wow.
yeah. Like for instance, I bet you a lot of times in your role over at JP Morgan, if somebody came upon a problem with the client, they'll walk in your office and says, Gordon, you know so and so. Here's where I'm stuck at. What would you do? Oh, here's what you need to do. They like it this way. They like it in PowerPoint. Don't do this. Don't give them too much information. Just do it that way. Oh, got it. Versus, hey, look, you got to figure this out. But here, go talk to your boss and manager versus just giving them all the answers.
Exactly, and this is so much more important when you're promoted from a, say, a sales or sales support role, because the person who's the account manager may keep coming back to you when you're no longer supposed to be the account manager, but the team that leads one of the account managers that look after that account.
Yeah,
Give you an
yeah,
example. You worked well with one of with the account managers, and then the client knows you, but now you've moved into a different role, and everyone just thinks that you must be the one that I have to go
yeah.
for that client.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, at the same time, I will probably say, in order to be a good teammate employees, learn to mentor the person who replaces you. Sit them down and say, hey, here are some of the key things about the client that you probably know. Here are some of the things as you work with this team that will cause you to be effective. And do it over lunch, do it over a coffee, do it over a break, and help mentor those guys along and give them some tips.
True, true. And so I like the example given in the article. It says, for example, if Bernice was going to take over your job, then when the people who used to work with you keep coming to you, say, "Oh, you can say something like this in a respectful manner. I appreciate you coming to me, but that is Bernice's decision. So please, I trust her judgment. Go with her."
Yeah. And another thing is if you find people frequently skipping levels to reach you, consider why. Do they perceive gaps in decision making? And so a lot of times, am I not being clear? Do I need to work through some of those things? That's something you just have to work with.
Agree, agree. And let's be honest, we'll have different styles of making decisions, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, like for instance, and this is an Asian style, like, and I see this in Africans as well too, that they don't want to go to the level, they want to go to the top of the person who could just get them the answer. So they'll bypass all these level because they know that if they get to the person at the very top, that if that person says yes, it just sets the precedence for everything else.
Yes, and that can create lots of chaos. In fact,
Yeah.
it'll create a lot of disrespectful behavior, and so I think it's on the leader to push that back and push that down to the people that
Yeah.
he is supposed to trust.
There is nothing worse than an employee who says, because they've talked with you, says to the next person below you, says, oh, I've already talked with Tommy Gordon. He says it was fine. It really ruins that team dynamic.
Exactly, and if you are the guy who was given that message, you're going like, oh, there we go again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Last one, invest in a thought partner.
Yeah, so I think the article tries to direct it to a coach, but I think anyone whom you trust or who has good or wise ideas or wise thoughts is someone that you can use as a soundboard to bounce ideas or bounce feelings off. I think.
And that's why I think a lot of times every single team should include some sort of executive team or core team that
Mhm.
allows you from different departments that allows you to really be able to hear what everyone's thinking about.
Yeah, and then I guess that's why there's this rage about mentoring in the office space. But mentoring is very tricky, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For you, what was the one thing that you got out of this article which helped you as a coach as well too as you work with different employees?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of like raising that awareness of what if you don't let go and you clung on to your old job. And I think that is a very important reminder for me as a coach to help someone move on or to transition on to a promotion.
Yeah, yeah. It is. I think a lot of times it's healthy to learn how to let go and move on to the next step. Because look, there's a reason why you got promoted. And but at the same time, I know you could do it well, but you got to empower other people to be able to do that job.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Tuesdays with Gordon. Thank you very much. As we talked about, don't cling to your old job after being promoted. Thanks, Gordon.
Thank you, Tommy.
All right. So, what's your schedule like in the next couple of weeks? I hear there might be a golf trip again coming up.
I'm winding down and enjoying myself towards the end of the year.
You got it. Well, enjoy your time. We'll talk soon. Okay.
You too.